The university hospital loomed before him, its cold, sterile walls rising like a fortress beneath a sky that offered no comfort. Yisak stepped forward, but his body felt disconnected, like a puppet moving without strings. Inside his mind, the doctor's voice echoed again, repeating the cruel verdict. A rare disease, no cure, 6 months. The weight of those words crushed him, pressing into his chest like an iron slab. His name, Yisak, had been rewritten by fate, reduced to a fleeting whisper in time. The world around him continued its relentless march. Strangers brushed past, their faces blurred, indifferent. He was already a ghost, drifting along the edges of existence, unseen, unnoticed. The sharp beep of a crossing signal snapped him out of his daze. The sound was a cruel taunt, reminding him of the years he had spent chasing dreams, believing that hard work would eventually reward him. And now, time mocked him. The reward had come too late. Someone shoved him aside, scolding him for standing in the middle of the road. He barely registered it. What did danger matter to a man already sentenced to die? He dropped to his knees, his fingers curling around the crumpled slip of paper in his palm. The lottery ticket, the symbol of a future filled with possibility, now nothing more than a twisted joke. He had won everything, only to lose the one thing that mattered. A choked sob escaped him, then a desperate scream, raw, primal, torn from his soul. He didn't care if anyone heard. He didn't care if the world kept turning without him. He just needed something, anything, to defy fate. His voice shattered the dusk, a plea carved into the air. Someone, anyone, save me. I don't want to die. Consciousness flooded back, but something was terribly wrong. He wasn't himself, at least, not the him he remembered. He was taller now, thinner, and terrifyingly bald. No, not just bald, skeletal. His bony fingers flexed, his hollow eyes scanned the battlefield, and an unsettling realization dawned upon him. He had become something else. Around him lay the grotesque remains of creatures, monsters that had once fought against him. Their bodies sprawled across the ground, defeated, twisted in unnatural angles. But the battle wasn't over yet. The survivors, those last foolish fiends, were closing in. A grin, stretched wide across his bony face, took shape. He didn't just tolerate the slaughter, he loved it. With each swing of his blade, another beast fell. Every strike felt like poetry, every dodge like a dance. They thought they could win? Oh, how he reveled in their naivety. One final creature lunged at him in desperation. He sidestepped smoothly, his skeletal body moving with an eerie grace. The monster didn't even have time to regret its decision before his blade sliced clean through it. And then, silence. The rebellion was done, over, finished. The last of them lay dead before him. He took in the destruction, the sheer scale of his victory. From being a lowly summon, a basic skeleton with barely enough strength to hold a sword, he had risen, transformed, become something greater. An undead lich, a ruler of demonkind. He had led them out of ruin, given them purpose, and in return, they worshipped him. Or, tried to. Izak, all hail King Izak, they chanted with unwavering devotion. He sighed. He was their king, yes, their almighty, fearsome leader. But, my name is Yisak, he muttered under his breath. Not that it mattered. These fools had mangled his name so many times he had long stopped correcting them. The resentment lingered, but greater desires beckoned him forward. He wasn't meant to be trapped in this skeletal prison. He was supposed to be human, flesh, blood, warmth. He turned away, ignoring their praise. He had no interest in their misguided worship. His mission wasn't to rule. It was to reclaim what was lost. To be able to eat again, to feel pain, to truly live. Yisak dropped the monster's head onto the ground. Silence filled the air. They stared at him, stunned, their expressions frozen in shock. None had expected such a swift, brutal victory. But he did not care for their reactions. His goal lay beyond this moment. His journey had led him here, to the divine realm, a celestial court where beings of immense power ruled over existence itself. Towering figures of godly strength sat upon thrones, their eyes full of judgment, their voices laced with arrogance. He could hear them, the sneers, the taunts that echoed through the grand halls. Yisak stepped forward. He had done what they had asked. He had crushed the rebellious factions, silencing those who dared defy their divine authority. His end of the bargain had been fulfilled, and he had come to claim the reward they had promised. Yet as he moved through the court, whispers slithered through the air. He caught them, murmurs of disdain, hints of surprise at how quickly he had succeeded. But more than that, he heard their treachery. They had no intention of keeping their word. They wanted to bind him, to trap him in eternal servitude. The realization did not shake him. He had expected their deception, but that did not mean he would accept it. He stood before them and demanded what was his, the restoration of his humanity, the return of what had been taken from him. They tried to stall. They spoke of another task, another errand to serve their grand design. Their false offers meant nothing to him. A slow, chilling grin spread across his skeletal face, void of warmth but full of warning. They questioned him, his sanity, his boldness. How could he challenge them? How could he dare to defy gods? They did not understand. He was no ordinary being. He was forged from forbidden arts, free from the natural laws that bound the living and the divine alike. He could not be destroyed. Even here, in their sacred realm, he was a danger. If they would not honor their promise, then they would suffer the consequences. They pleaded, grasping for time, for compromise. They attempted to bargain, throwing out hollow words in desperation, but he did not hear them. For their betrayal, he would exact a heavy price, their lives. With a wicked laugh, he unleashed his fury. A storm of dark energy erupted from his being, consuming the divine court in a relentless wave of destruction. The gods screamed, their voices filled with fear and pain. But he only laughed. Their suffering was his triumph. He had waited for this moment, his revenge against those who had betrayed him. Then, something changed. A strange sensation crept through him, dulling his power. His mana, the very source of his strength, was fading. His movements slowed. His body refused to respond. What was this? A voice rang out, smug and confident. It came from above, from the gods who had set this trap. They revealed the cause of his sudden weakness, a holy artifact inscribed with his name. It had the power to immobilize any being. But there was something else. They did not speak his true name. They spoke of the one written on the artifact, Izak. Before he could react, they invoked the highest-class holy art, banished disaster. He felt it instantly. His demonic essence was being torn from him, sealed away. He will be imprisoned within a lowly insect. Rage filled him. He railed against the injustice, against the humiliation of being trapped in something so weak, so repulsive. How dare they do this to him? Yet even as he fumed, one of the gods spoke, questioning his obsession with his lost hair. It was a simple remark, yet it sparked something within him. And then, despite their efforts to seal him away, despite their certainty that he was powerless, he moved. They watched in disbelief. He could still act. Yisak refused to accept such a humiliating fate. He would not live as a mere insect, trapped in a form so pitiful and weak. If he could not reclaim his humanity, he would rather cease to exist altogether. Summoning the last of his power, he unleashed it in one final act of defiance. His energy erupted in a blinding explosion, shaking the very foundations of the divine court. The force tore through the space around him, consuming everything in its path. Pain surged through him. Everything exploded. The gods, caught in the blast, staggered from the impact. But as the dust settled, they realized their spell had worked. The Demon King's soul remained sealed. He was trapped within the insect. It was done. Relief washed over them. Their power had returned, their authority secure once more. But even in victory, they did not relax. They knew that another threat like Yisak, a skeleton king, could rise again. They could not afford to lower their defenses. So, they devised a plan. A vessel would be created, a saint in the human realm. This chosen one would stand as the ultimate defense against the forces of darkness. The gods would ensure that no demon would ever rise again. As for Yisak, his punishment would be eternal. Trapped in the body of a feeble insect, he would suffer for the rest of time. They had won, and he would pay, forever. Lost in his despair, Yisak found himself in a strange, unfamiliar world. It was bathed in an unnaturally bright light, far different from the darkness he had known before. His brain scrambled for answers. Had the gods finally lost their grip on him? Had he, against all odds, escaped their eternal grasp? Then, a more pressing horror struck him. He had hands, chubby, small human hands. He wiggled his fingers in disbelief. This was all wrong. Just yesterday. Was it yesterday? He had been a walking skeleton, a mere whisper of a being. Now, he was stuck in what appeared to be a child's body, plump and healthy. Was this some cosmic joke? A group of unfamiliar faces loomed over him, their expressions a mix of awe and unsettling joy. "The saint has awakened," they cried, their voices trembling with eerie excitement. Saint? Him? Yisak eyed them warily. Their happiness seemed almost forced, like actors in a play where they'd been handed roles they didn't agree with. Then, it got worse. "You must return to sleep," one of them murmured, the words carrying more weight than they should. Return to sleep? Forever? Yisak suddenly wasn't a fan of naps. Before he could demand an explanation, someone shoved a baby bottle towards him, filled with something suspiciously murky. His pulse quickened. That wasn't a formula. That was doom in a bottle. He stared at them, then at the bottle. Was this supposed to be his grand ending? Again? The man held out the bottle again, his expression unreadable. Yisak felt his pulse quicken. Something was wrong, very wrong. That bottle wasn't just an innocent offer, it was a trap. He dodged it like it was a flaming arrow. His movements were sharp, deliberate. Thought they could trick him into drinking whatever suspicious sleep potion they had brewed up. Did they think he was born yesterday? Actually, given recent events, that wasn't entirely inaccurate. He wouldn't drink it. Not now, not ever. They whispered among themselves, baffled. Why was the child refusing? He was supposed to take the bottle, supposed to drink the potion, supposed to fall into their carefully laid plan. But instead, he was standing there like a defiant cat. Yisak, no, wait. Isaac? That's what they called him. The name tickled something deep in his mind. No, that wasn't it. Idzak. Yes, that was his name, or, well, another way to say it. Yisak, Izak. The difference wasn't much, but it had been enough. When they had cast the spell, banished disaster, he hadn't been sealed because they had written his name the wrong way. Classic villain mistake. If only they had triple-checked their magical paperwork. A rookie error. And now? Now he was alive. Reincarnated into a human body. He had escaped. Their grand plan crumbling before their very eyes. Their target, this surprisingly strong child, was slipping through their fingers. They had failed. And Yisak was free. For now. They shoved the revolting green slop down Isaac's throat. It tasted like betrayal. He tried to resist, but they held him firm, forcing every drop into his mouth. Then, he felt it, a strange sensation creeping through his body. Something unnatural was taking hold. Isaac wasn't sure what was happening, but one thing was clear, this wasn't just any juice. In the grand halls of the Holy Empire Hela, Bishop Martin strutted forward with the confidence of a man who knew something no one else did, or at least thought he did. He dramatically, emphasizing his self-importance as he spoke of a baby, no ordinary infant, but a saint candidate whose time on this earth seemed limited. Then came the Emperor himself, Alexander Hela, the man who could silence a room just by existing. His entrance was nothing short of cinematic. If power could take physical form, it would probably look like him. The officials greeted him with the kind of nervous reverence one reserves for someone who could. Martin, ever the dedicated bishop, declared his intention to greet the saint candidate of House Yeshua. Protocol and divine duty demanded it, or at least that was the excuse he gave. The emperor waved away the concern with the ease of a man who knew far more than he let on. His gaze was sharp, full of knowing. Was he suspicious? Did he suspect that something had gone terribly wrong? Then chaos struck. A panicked voice rang through the halls, a maid, nearly tripping over herself in her haste. She gasped, eyes wide in horror and disbelief. "The young master," she shrieked. "He's alive, and oddly energetic?" The officials, the emperor, and the ever-smirking Martin rushed to the source of the disruption. And there was the baby, the very saint candidate whose demise had been all but guaranteed. Except now, instead of being pale and frail, he looked downright adorable. Chubby cheeks, sparkling eyes, a vitality that no one could explain. Martin's smile faltered. This wasn't right. This wasn't possible. It was a lot of vegetable juice, more than anyone should consume, but that wasn't the problem. Martin's heart skipped a beat. That wasn't just juice. It was holy poison. A poison that should have turned the child into a tragic prophecy. A few minutes ago, Isaac had been drinking juice when something strange happened. He felt something enter his body. It wasn't just any ordinary sensation, it was like someone had switched on a power supply inside him. The holy poison meant to destroy the sacred energy of the clergy was now flowing through him, but instead of harm, it brought power. Why? Because this poison was crafted from demonic mana. And for a former demon king? Well, this was basically a free lunch. Deep inside him, the skeleton king, his past self, was practically blushing with joy. This was incredible. He could eat all the baby food he wanted. The child let out gleeful cries, his demands for more of the deadly juice shocking the onlookers. Instead of stopping him, they happily handed over more. Why not? He seemed fine. As he gulped it down, his body absorbed the mana perfectly, as if this entire situation was a cosmic joke. Now, where to go from here? He had to concentrate. He was drifting through the unconscious world, the deepest depths of his being, his source. He needed to form a mana core, a safe place to store the immense energy he was taking in. He began pulling all the mana together, shaping it into something solid. This was necessary. Without a mana core, he couldn't use magic. But there was one pressing problem. Would this thing explode? Usually mana cores came in 3 primary colors. His, however, was a glaring white. That was unexpected. But color wasn't the real concern. How in the world was this much power fitting into a core that wasn't even fully formed yet? This was beyond anything he had anticipated. The power was enormous. Just how much divine and demonic energy had been stuffed into this tiny body? If he grew up properly, he might become an even bigger monster than he had ever imagined. He felt the force surge inside him, a single word rising to the surface: Isaac. He pointed ahead and uttered a single command: survive. That desperate, unyielding instinct was imprinted deep within his soul, and in the end, that became the true beginning of the Skeleton King. With this surge of energy, he was able to craft his own original buffs and skills, things never seen before, and Isaac, the baby, would inherit them, whether the world was ready or not. That was another matter entirely. They stared at him, waiting, wondering. Was this the moment? Had he finally succumbed? Nope, not even close. Isaac was very much alive and thriving, if his energetic wriggling was anything to go by. His chubby hands reached forward, not for comfort or reassurance, but for more bottles, stronger ones. Whatever unholy juice had turned him into this unstoppable force, he wanted more. And then, there it was. That mischievous smile, that laugh, a little too troubling for a baby. The kind of laugh that sent a chill down spines and raised serious questions about what exactly this tiny menace would grow into. Back in the present, everyone let out a breath. Thankfully, nothing terrible had happened. Sure, Isaac had almost been assassinated, but hey, small victories. He was still sitting there, very much not dead. Martin, however, was staring at him, narrowing his eyes in deep suspicion. Why was the kid looking at him like that? Did he know something? Maybe Isaac had guzzled down too much of that juice, holy poison, miracle elixir, whatever it was, but now was not the time for mistakes. He had to play it cool. Suspicion was dangerous, and Isaac couldn't afford to be caught looking too aware of his own survival. No, he had to do what all brilliant schemers did in moments of tension: smile. A big, dumb, baby smile, as innocent as a cherub, completely clueless, as if he had no idea what was going on. But Martin wasn't fooled. His face twisted in frustration, his anger bubbling over as he glared at Isaac. This bastard, he should be dying, coughing up blood. Except Isaac wasn't dying. He wasn't coughing, choking, gasping for air, or dramatically collapsing like Martin expected. No, instead of fading into oblivion like any normal victim of poisoning, Isaac was laughing. A bright, bubbly, joyous laugh. The sheer audacity of it was maddening. Martin's teeth clenched. This child was an absolute menace. A few days earlier, at the grand headquarters of the Holy See, a man, Ray Barrett, a cardinal with a knack for arrogance, scoffed at the idea of a saint running the Holy Empire. He thought the noble families were annoying, throwing around the title of saint for their children like it meant nothing. A bishop assured him that the other saint candidates were being taken care of. Ray Barrett brought up a troubling rumor. People were saying a saint candidate had appeared from House Yeshua, the emperor's closest ally, the emperor's right hand. There was nothing they could do about it. Ray crushed his wineglass in his hand, spilling dark red liquid everywhere. He didn't care. The saint candidate had probably died before they even arrived, but he had to see the body to be sure. He had acted first to make sure they wouldn't survive. The title of saint could only belong to his House Barrett, and only House Barrett. Martin had been told the baby would be dead, but Isaac was still alive. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was not the plan. The emperor regarded the situation with intrigue, leaned forward, his gaze lingering on the child's radiant platinum blonde hair, a startling resemblance as the Holy Empire's legendary founder. The bishop stepped forward to intervene, but the emperor pressed on, remarking that the child bore an even closer resemblance to divinity than the current pope. Isaac turned his eyes to the emperor. With unwavering certainty, the emperor declared that the child must be the final saint candidate. The revelation struck Isaac. This baby, the one they called saint, was the true candidate. It suddenly made sense. The baby? Of course. That's why everyone kept calling him saint. The emperor's fascination with the child deepened, and the bishop knew he had to act. Martin urgently requested permission to examine the infant, insisting something was amiss. After all, how could a baby possibly consume such an excessive amount of vegetable juice? And yet, wasn't it strange? Saint candidates eating monk food, the demon king himself ending up as a saint candidate? Nothing made sense. It defied reason. Still, Martin was granted permission to inspect the child, at least until someone from House Yeshua arrived. Isaac felt the demonic energy swirling inside him like a bad case of indigestion. Oh no, he burped, loudly. His eyes widened in horror as he snapped his mouth shut. Had anyone noticed? Was he busted? The bishop narrowed his gaze. He had noticed something. He sensed traces of demonic energy coming from the child. How odd. This was no ordinary saint candidate. Was this child a fraud? A fake chosen one bearing mana? The bishop stiffened. This required immediate investigation. Such audacity, to speak of a saint candidate in that manner. Yet, was there any real need for alarm? The Pope had already selected the child from House Barrett, his own bloodline, as the saint. How brazen. The shamelessness. So this was why his motive was to remove the boy from the competition. Martin wasted no time. He ordered the priests to summon an inquisitor. But then, wait. House Yeshua stood as the imperial family's closest ally. The emperor intervened, proposing that the child be re-evaluated at a later time. The bishop frowned. He recalled his conversation with the pope. The investiture ceremony for the crown prince would only happen after the saint selection, a political move. The pope wouldn't officially recognize his own son unless his saint choice was accepted. Was this all part of the Holy See's grand scheme? Isaac had no desire to remain a saint candidate. It was far too dangerous. His true identity was at risk of being exposed. At any moment they could invoke their holy exorcism art to inspect the child. If he were human, he'd remain unharmed. But if he were a demon, extermination would be immediate. He couldn't allow that to happen. He had no choice but to play along. Without hesitation, Isaac struck Martin with a baby bottle. Martin reeled in shock. How could something so simple cause such pain? That light. Was it holy power? The child must truly be the saint. No, it wasn't possible. Yet he could feel it, divine energy radiating from within the child. But this sensation, what was it? It burned. Isaac wasn't about to stop now. He unleashed an onslaught of baby bottles, hurling them at the bishop like divine missiles. Relentless, unstoppable. The bishop staggered back. This was definitely mana. But it wasn't just mana, it was radiant. Brilliant. Almost too powerful to comprehend. Isaac grinned internally. Just a little more, reinforcing the bottle with strengthening magic, preparing for one final strike. He would maintain the facade of an innocent infant while delivering the decisive blow. Surely the bishop must have been marveling at his supposed holy power. What was this? Each time he channeled mana, a faint trace of holy power surfaced alongside it. That wasn't supposed to happen. Mana and holy power were like oil and water, completely incompatible, never meant to coexist. Was this because of that strange white mana core? Something wasn't adding up. The bishop recoiled in horror. He swore on everything sacred. This baby was a heretic. The holy exorcism art must be invoked at once. Isaac narrowed his eyes. You slimy piece of dirt. He hadn't intended to push things this far, but here they were. Then, something caught his attention. Isaac squinted. Oh, you slimy little snake. The bishop was concealing something fascinating. His tiny hands reached forward, diving straight into the bishop's robes. The bishop barely had time to react before Isaac pulled out something very interesting, a totem. The bishop stiffened, stunned by the revelation. This wasn't just any artifact, it was designed to mimic the nature of demons, who consumed the corpses of their own kind to absorb their mana. A sealed high-ranking demon's remains. A totem. The bishop carried it always, a safeguard against demons should he ever cross paths with one. But how? How had this infant uncovered his secret? Panic took hold. The bishop tried to flee. Isaac could hardly believe it. Isaac wasn't about to let him off the hook that easily. With a flick of his wrist he chucked the totem onto the floor, letting it clatter loudly. This was the consequence of Martin's relentless pursuit. With a snap of his fingers, demonic energy surged, chaos erupted. The room filled with screams as a massive demonic beast clawed its way into existence, its presence drowning the air in dark energy. Isaac smirked, crossing his little baby arms. Parry this, you filthy casual.